I think that Trump will win. And take out the names and say a Republican is going to win Ohio, Florida, Iowa. Are they going to be the president? The answer to that's yes. Like, here's what you can measure. The best day of the campaign, and Hillary Clinton is not putting him away. It's still a margin of error race, and she just had the best week of her campaign, and he's still within 2 or 3. And when we have, you know, a country that is so divided, and he can do the things he can do, and he's still got a really high ceiling or high floor, that means to me that Pennsylvania's in play. And when you have a Republican playing offense in a state that we should never be in, and Trump is doing the kind of work in Pennsylvania that can happen, that he's doing with the numbers there. They have suburbs that are bad, and Philly suburbs, I get it. But I don't know. I think he'll win. I think it'll be close.
Jeff, do you think it's a good idea for Hillary Clinton to be laying low and not having any events until the debate?
No, this prevent defense that she's conducted since I guess since the Khan event, I think it's a real mistake. I mean, you can't beat somebody for president in July and August. So for her to be off the field, I mean, I think they have this idea that when your opponent's slitting his throat, don't take away the knife. I think that's their approach. I think it's a mistake. I mean, she needs energy, she needs excitement, she needs passion, and they just don't have it. And
so who's going to win this race?
You know, if the election were today, Hillary would win. But it is a margin of error race. It's tied or within the margin in all the key battleground states. And but think about this: if we were saying 2 years ago and said, okay, the Republican nominee is going to win Iowa, they're going to be either tied or really close in Florida. They're going to win Ohio. They're going to be competitive in Maine. They're going to be competitive in Pennsylvania somewhat. I'd take my chances this year. Trump had about a 13-point advantage on intensity. I would take a deficit at the polls if I had an advantage in intensity.
How do we reconcile the wide lead that Hillary Clinton has in the national polls with the much tighter state of affairs in the battleground states?
Well, it's political malpractice to have a national 2 weeks out from an election. But if you want to talk about the disparity is actually that they just get the natural coverage that goes with the presidential campaign nationally. They don't get the state by state. They don't get the advertising. They don't get the visits. They don't also get to really have the vibe of the campaign going on in their communities. They don't have activities. They don't have volunteerism. They don't have signs. They don't have any sort of aspect of a real campaign. So disparity runs at what the national performance of the national election looks like, and that typically is astray, much more so this year than normal because there's been so much negative information from a national perspective against Trump. But these state-by-state polls are all close, all margin of error in every state that Donald would need to win. I think there's about 13% of votes out there that are hanging around. They hang around in undecided. They hang around with Gary Johnson, and they hang around with Jill Stein. Those typical third-party candidates should only get 2, maybe 1, 2, or 3% of the vote, kind of what Ralph Nader got. And Stein's going to get, she's not going to lose any over this. Johnson could lose some to Trump. And then you take the undecided voters, which habitually throughout this election cycle in the general election have been about 65% lean Republican. So that's where this makes it up, and that's why this is really significant 10 days out to have this occur. Well, there's 8 days left, and so you still have 4 days left for persuasion before you have to get into the last 4 days, which is all get out the vote. And so what the Trump team is looking at is let's assume they have Florida and North Carolina. Let's assume they have Nevada and Iowa. Let's assume that they still have Ohio in their camp. They still need another state. So they could pick one state. They could maybe just pick a Michigan or a Wisconsin or New Mexico. They could pick one of those states and put all their chips on that state. But I think it's probably smart to spread it out. The last 4 days he's got to camp out and, if you will, hunt where the ducks are. And Ohio he has to win to even worry about it. Wisconsin, he has to win North Carolina to worry about another state, and Florida. And I think you'll see him shore those states up.
Trump is making a run these last 168 hours this week, and I think we're in a rain delay with the Comey letter yesterday, and he's making a frantic finish to try and close. But I think when it drops tomorrow, that it is all going to be about what kind of campaign did they execute? When you're in a margin of error race, it's about the ground game. It's about the analytics. And what we've said all along is that he didn't have that ground game capacity. On the other side, he had populist anger. So what's going to win out, the ground game or the populist anger?
And when you talk to Republicans, they are demoralized because they think Trump is going to lose. When you look at the data, it's simply just not the case. But I think Wisconsin is a state, it's swings back and forth. It elects Scott Walker, a Republican legislature. It'll send, Democrats to Congress and to the United States Senate. So it's back and forth state, but that's a blue-collar state that he should have in his column, and I think it's the best opportunity that he has on the map.